Welcome to week 4. So here I am at Chapultepec Castle overlooking Mexico City, and we're going to be focusing on one thing in particular. That is the war between the United States and Mexico. So you guys all have your documents, your DBQ documents, and as we look at those documents, we want to focus on who was at fault for the war. Was the war justified? In other words, justified, was the war right for one side or the other? So let us begin with looking at document. So remember, we're trying to answer that question: was the United States justified in the war against, or who was at fault for the war? So was the United States justified for going to war with Mexico? So that is our focus. Focusing on the question, was the United States justified in going to war with Mexico? So remember, we're really focused on the use of the documents. We don't want our emotions to get involved here. You may have ties to the country of Mexico. You may feel very strongly about it. But ultimately, this question, as you write your DBQ response, must be reinforced with the use of documents. So let's take a look at document A. What is the meaning of document A? So as we look at document A, we notice that the author's name is John O'Sullivan. And he's talking about annexation, okay? So let's think about annexation. What do we know about the term annexation? We spent Thursday and Friday talking about annexation. That is, making Texas part of the United States. So that's his focus. We know that he's from the United States. So obviously, if he's writing a document, if his document is published, he's obviously, we would think, for the United States, maybe justified in the war. Now we notice that the document is written in 1845. That's actually before the war started. Okay, so let's take a look at the document. He talks about time for the opposition to cease. So once again, who's opposing the United States in this whole process? Who's against the annexation of Texas? So we talked about that both on Thursday and Friday. So let's keep that in mind. And then he talks about other nations, how the United States has dealt with other nations, and he uses that term manifest destiny. What is manifest destiny? Remember the God-given right that the Americans thought that they could expand westward and take the land. So there's two key words here: annexation, manifest destiny. He then goes on to talk about how California is going to fall. Okay? California is going to fall. Texas fell before that, and fall away from Mexico. Here he uses some very strong language. He calls the Mexicans, or the Mexican government, he says imbecile and distracted. So remember, how is he portraying the Mexican government? Okay? Now ultimately you have to answer that question using that question. How is he portraying the Mexican government? And ultimately, is this a justification or a reason for going to war with another country? So with document B, it's a war message from President Polk. So what do we know about President Polk? One, we know that he actually wanted to expand westward. That was when he was elected. That was his goal, to expand westward. Okay, so this is the war message. War message, remember, president can't declare war by himself. He must go to Congress. And we look at the text of the message. Now this is the information that he is using to justify the war. He talks about the invasion, talks about an invasion by the Mexican government. And remember, this is all over a border dispute, the Rio Grande and the Nueces River. So he talks about an invasion. So as we look through the text here, he's trying to justify, we look in the column over here, he's justifying what happened to the United States. Okay? So as we look at the document analysis answering the question, remember about the border dispute. And what do we think about the Mexican side? How would they view about the United States being in this, what we call the disputed territory? Then we take a look at, according to President Polk, where did this action actually take place? And what was the response? We talk about response, that means how did Congress vote for him? Vote for the actual message itself. Now, we look here, once again, the final question is, how was the United States justified in going to war? We go to the text. We go to what actually happened. So document C has a different perspective. You'll recognize the name Jesus Velasco Marquez. Now, he's the one person who came in the video and he came out and says, they're lying. Polk is lying. So obviously, we can understand where he's coming from, and we want to think about what is his reason for, was the United States justified in going to war? Okay, so we look here, and once again, this is from his viewpoint, okay? So he talks about a couple things. He uses the word, from Mexico's point of view, the annexation of Texas was inadmissible. The term inadmissible means can't use it, can't admit it, it was wrong. And he gives the reasons why, legal and security reasons, okay? So as we continue down, he goes over what the event was, and he talks about, in his case, he's talking about confrontation, how Mexico is trying to protect their citizens, okay? And then he uses the last text, he says, American government acted like a bandit who came upon a traveler, all right? So whose viewpoint's being held here? Is this an American viewpoint or Mexican viewpoint? And how does it help us answer the question, was the United States justified or not?